there are many identities on this continent, and many of us, many of the citizens in Europe actually have several identities. We are obsessed with identity in Europe. Either we believe that we are either Turkish or German, but actually many in Europe are both Turkish and German. And you can have other kinds of identities also. Many say that I'm not a homosexual, but many say that they are. Or they can be Roma people, or so there are so many identities which we really have to pay respect to. And this report said clearly that you have the right to keep your own identity, but you also have certain obligations as a European. There are some values that are binding us together. The debate is so polarized, and it is also in a way exploited by many political forces in order to benefit from the tensions that we see in the societies. So my aim was actually to get the mainstream parties in Europe and the mainstream political leaders to find more of a common ground in how to discuss these issues, what kind of language they should use, and how they in concrete practical terms also could deal with these issues. We have seen it before, and it appears again that in particular now when we have the economic crisis on and unemployment is rising, then there is competition for jobs, and minorities become again the scapegoat for all the problems that we have. And I think many people in Europe, and we have to take this serious, believe that that our culture is being threatened by the foreigners, those who are coming from the outside, or those who are not regarded as a part of the families of the European traditional culture and religion. It is not new, unfortunately. We have seen it in the past, how, for instance, minorities can be exploited, in particular when we have economic crisis, unemployment, then minorities become the scapegoats for all the problems that we have in the society. This is appearing again. And now it's not so much the Jews, although we are witnessing also growing anti-Semitism, but now the Muslims have taken that role to a large extent. So there is a need now for also give a clear signal to Europeans, and that is also very concrete in the report, namely that the level of welfare that we have in Europe today is totally dependent on the immigrants coming here. If the immigrants disappeared, who should do all the jobs that are necessary on this continent? We couldn't have kept up the level of welfare that we have today without all the immigrants. And it is also clear that we need much more immigrants in the future, because the population is aging, and therefore we need new and fresh blood from the outside. So this is something which we need to have a much better dialogue with the public on the European continent. So yes, there are quite many people, unfortunately, that believe that Europe is under threat from those who are coming from the outside, in particular the Muslims. So and also a worrying tendency is, of course, that these people can form their own parallel societies up in the cyberspace. They are sitting there discussing with people on the internet, and they become more and more extreme. This is also a new factor in the whole situation. Europe is a continent of many cultures, many ethnicities, many religions. So the fact that these things are polarizing the societies and creating that kind of political tension is a very big threat, and if it continues and if it grows, then we may see more violence and we may see more political upheaval, which of course will lead to even more economic and political problems that we see today. Media nowadays is increasingly looking for conflicts. What creates conflicts makes money, and therefore of course they can exploit the conflict that is there because of the diversity and all the immigrants coming. So I think that the media on the one side is contributing to increasing the tensions in the society, but on the other hand, I would also, to be fair, I would say that there is also a lot of good and constructive reporting about these issues. If we are not able to unite more, to create more common ground for how to tackle this, in particular among the mainstream political forces, then we may see a radicalization of the whole political climate, which, and we have seen it before, where it goes. So, I mean, it's absolutely necessary now to speak out against it. And what this report says or calls for is actually that the main political leaders take more responsibility in order to build more unity and common ground for how to tackle this, rather than to exploit the tensions and the fears that obviously are there among ordinary people. So I think this is the main message from this report, namely that yes, we are Europeans, but we are also quite different people. We have different identities, we have different priorities, and we have to pay respect to this. This must be part of our European identity, namely that we are different. But it has also, we also have to say that there is something which is common for all of us, and that is the common European values. We cannot only be a continent of different ethnic, religious, cultural groups. We have also to have something that binds us together. The Council of Europe was started after the war, because of the war. Winston Churchill said it, that the peace had to be built on human rights and rule of law, and the war came because we saw a total breakdown of human rights and rule of law on this continent. So, I mean, this is the core mandate of our organization, namely to build a lasting peace based on these values. And now the peace is not threatened from the outside. The peace in Europe and security in Europe actually is coming from is threatened by from the within, namely that we are not able to live together in respect with common values. So I mean, this is the challenge for Council of Europe, I would say.